Hey, this is Travis Steerwalt. Welcome to another edition of Air Power Live. Today's topic, Cartridge Filters 101. I am lucky to be standing next to my friend Will Bryan, who actually is a supplier to Air Power, True Flow Filters. Will has been with a couple different companies over the years, supplying filters and dealing with Air Power for over 20 years. So, Will, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Glad to be here.
We are here because of a reason.
Correct.
People don't know anything about cartridge filters, or very little. They see them, they don't know a lot about them, and I'll have to be honest, in my adventures in the filter world, this was the hardest to grab, let's call it, okay? So, yeah, we know we're standing in the cartridge booth right here. We know that it uses, 18 cartridge filters?
Correct.
But we don't know what it is. You know, we come into these situations and customers like, hey, Travis, I need help replacing these. I'm like, man, there's 100 things I need to know. I can't just, I can't just measure from here to here and be like, I know what it is. So, reason for this video is to inform you guys about cartridge filters, do a little education. So, first question I have for you, Will, what is a cartridge filter and what does it do?
Okay, a cartridge filter is a filter, obviously, that is used to filter processed dust in any application, whether that be powder coating, welding, could be sugar, flour, could be any type of dust that's processed in a manufacturing application. It's a round filter, as you can see. This one is open on both ends, and that's what it's used for. The dust or powder that is coming into the filter comes from the outside in. So the outside is collecting the powder or the dust. Clean air comes through the inside and is exhausted either back into the plant or outside.
Okay, so nutshell, all the dust is collected actually on the outside.
Correct.
And then the clean air moves to the inside and then it's moved back out in different scenarios. Some of them are going to exhaust outside, some are going to exhaust back into a plant, but it's going to have to go through another layer of vinyl and HEPA type filters.
Correct. For example, in a powder room where you want to have an air-conditioned room, a conditioned environment, in that situation, you would want to exhaust your air back into the room. So you have to make sure that you're filtering at a higher rate to make sure that the air that's coming back into the room is clean.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about the components of a cartridge filter. You know, I'm looking here, and I know some of them have cages, some of them don't have cages, there's bands, some have different characteristics on the outside edge. So let's talk about those.
Sure.
I know one of the terms is end caps.
Yes. So this is important. Anytime we're replacing filters, there's certain things that we need to know. We need to know what type of end caps that we have. We do know that the open end is always open. The top end is always going to be open. The bottom end is either going to be open, it's going to be closed with a bolt hole, in which case we would need to know the size of that bolt hole, or it would be completely closed like this filter. Now the top of the filter, most filters have what we call a standard open top, which would be just like this. There's no flange, there's no lip, but there are different booths out there and different systems out there, and that's important to know. For example, this flange right here is what's called a FAR 10K flange. And as you can see, it's a completely different dimension. It actually slides into the system this way so that the filters hang vertically and are supported by this cap. So in this situation, it would be good to know the exact dimensions of the cap so that we can identify it being a FAR 10K flange.
Not only that, the specifics of that flange.
Correct.
The measurements exactly, I'm assuming those little tabs that are punched out on these ends are important for whatever system this is.
Yeah, and also, another thing that would be nice to have are pictures. Anytime you can get pictures in addition to a part number and all specs, all dimensions on the filter are great.
Now, would this replace for instance, this end or this end?
The top end.
So it would replace this end.
Yes.
So instead of having this metal cap with a gasket, before that's installed, this would have been installed.
Absolutely.
All right, so it's just there are a lot of options with the cartridge filters. Let's talk about the filter media itself, what you see within here. It's basically a pleated filter that wraps around the interior of the filter.
Yeah, let me talk about that for a minute. So this filter is about the most standard product that you'll find in the industry. It's considered an 80-20 blend. It's 80% paper and 20% polyester. You can get this filter with an outer cage or with bands. This filter here has bands, as you can see. So the advantage to a cage, to be honest with you, the main reason that you would want a cage is just because it's 80% paper. You do have to be a little bit careful with the filter when you're installing it. Bands give you a better release because you get more flexibility in the pleat, you get more movement in these pleats whenever the filter is pulsed. That's something we didn't talk about. The way these filters are cleaned, they're cleaned by compressed air. There's a compressed air chamber, so you're collecting dust, the pressure drop goes up, and the powder is knocked off the filter whenever it's pulsed. Hope that makes sense. In a powder application, you can reclaim your powder that way. So you can either reuse that powder or you can do what's called spray to waste. Again, this filter does not have the cage. Pleats are a little bit more open. You use bands in this case, about every 10.5 inches to help support that filter from the outside. Every cartridge filter has a cage on the inside, and those are the main differences. This is actually a nanofiber filter. So the nanofiber basically is like an 80-20 blend with a nanofiber layer on the outside, which gives it a much higher efficiency. So in this case, the 80-20 would be considered the substrate media, and it would have a nanofiber layer over the top.
Okay, you mentioned a couple different, I'm gonna move this back out of the way. You mentioned a couple different types of media, but let's go through the most common media that's known in the market, or the top 4 or 5. So obviously 80-20 I know is super popular. And is that pretty much because of cost?
Yes, for sure. 80-20 has been around for a long time. It is definitely the cheapest filter out there.
What does 80-20 stand for?
80% paper, 20% polyester. It's actually a very, very good media. It's been around a long time. It's commonly used in welding applications where it's good to have a lot of surface area. We can pack 350 pleats, 2-inch pleats into this 14-inch diameter filter. Okay. The second and the third, I would say, are pretty equal. Nanofiber is something that has been around for a long time. It's become more and more popular, and the cost has gone down. So it's still more expensive than 80-20, but because it's got a higher efficiency, a lot of customers like that. That efficiency, what it is a web of very, very fine fibers that are over the surface of the 80-20 blend, and that web helps catch really, really small fine particulate that would otherwise be embedded in the 80-20 blend. So what that does is whenever the air is pulsed back into that filter to clean it, it helps knock that dust off, and sometimes you can get a longer filter life out of the nanofiber. Another one that competes with that is, especially in powder coating applications, is what's called spun bond polyester. Spun bond has also been out for a long time. It's a very, very good material. It's heavy duty. It's even washable. Spun bond can be washed. It's like I said, it's 100% polyester. It's a very durable, strong media. It's commonly used in abrasive applications such as sanding, blasting, grinding type applications. And it's also a really good media to use in a reclaim booth because it's got a wider pleat. You knock out a lot more powder every time the filter's pulsed. And so if that powder is expensive, you're collecting that and you're able to reuse it. You're not throwing a lot of powder away whenever your filters are finished.
Right. So I do want to talk about that, the pleat density, like how many pleats that you get into a standard filter, and why that's important, why the maximum square footage is important.
Yeah, so every application is different. What's called air-to-cloth ratio is very, very important in a dust collector or a powder booth. And what that is air-to-cloth ratio is how much air you're passing through your fan, through your system, versus how much surface area you have, how much total filter area that you have. The lower the air-to-cloth ratio, the longer your filter life is going to be. The problem with that is it also means you need a larger unit. So when it comes to purchasing powder booths or dust collectors, the buyer of that equipment, the customer, the end user, is looking for the most economical solution. So usually what you want is to run it about a 2-to-1 in a welding application, or maybe even less, 2-to-1, 2 feet per minute. And in a powder coating application, because it is a bigger particulate than say weld fume, you can actually run up a little bit higher. And so in in a powder application, you could go up to 3 to 1, maybe sometimes even 4 to 1.
Touch on these briefly before we go to the next subject. I know I get questions a lot on cellulose paper.
Yes.
I'm assuming that the benefits on the cellulose paper type filter is price. It is the starter.
Right.
It's the lowest common denominator or the lowest denominator in the filters.
Right.
But I also know that they're highly subject to tears.
Yes.
And once this is torn,
yes.
Again, I've talked about it in other segments when we're talking about moves, airflow, and filters. When there's a hole in your filter process,
yes.
you have a path of least resistance,
right.
and now you have unfiltered air going straight through an open area. So just touch on the cellulose and paper.
Well, first let me say this. It's critical that you use, in their case, in AirPower's case, the reason that they do business with us, number one, is our quality. When you build a filter like this, as you can see in this one especially, you've got an outer cage and an inner cage. And this cage itself is expanded metal. It's very sharp at the top. So it's critical that in the manufacturing process that the diameter of the cage on the inside and the outside is correct, that the way that the end caps are potted is properly done. It's really, really easy to mess this up, and there are a lot of manufacturers of cartridge filters out there that really don't do it right. We do, and our quality department pays close attention to detail, and that's a huge factor that I need to point out. So what he's talking about, what Travis is talking about, is this material, this media is 80% paper, and it is possible to get a hole. And especially, let's just say we were using this filter in a grinding application, and for some reason, spark or something that got into it, and let's just say we burn a hole in a piece of this material. What would happen is, because the air goes the path of least resistance, the fan would want to pull more air through that little hole than through the rest of the media that's packed with dust.
And then it keeps.
So what happens is that eventually that's going to become, it starts with, say, a pinhole, we call it a pinhole, and eventually it's huge hole.
I say that to say this: when you're talking to your AirPower representative or you're talking to somebody about cartridge filters, just know that it is truly a get what you pay for environment.
Sure.
When you can do everything you want, you can get the metal on the outside to protect a little bit more, but all it takes is a spark or something, which you're typically not going to have in a powder coating application. But in other situations, you have that. You just got to know that your reason to replace that filter is going to come a lot sooner than if you invest in quality filters with the spun bond, the nano, or 80/20. 80/20 is not ridiculously more expensive than a paper or cellulose, but it's that much more durable.
That's a good point that he's bringing up too. So this has kind of been around for a long time. It's still a big seller in the industry. It's definitely the lowest common denominator when you look at materials out there that are available to you. What's happening is this is definitely gradually going away, and the nanofiber is taking its place.
Because people see how long it lasts, how good it is, and how efficient it is.
Yes. And
the payback is there, even though the filter's a little more expensive.
Right.
The payback is there.
Exactly. So let's just say this filter is what's considered a MERV 10. And MERV ratings are based off efficiency of the filter, where this filter is a nanofiber, and it's a MERV 15. Okay, so if you're in an environment where clean air is very important to you, then obviously, even if everything else was equal, you would want to go to this product because it gives you a more efficient.
This is a good example of the bands we talked about earlier. And the bands are there. You didn't really, in this case, didn't need a cage, but the bands are there to help give some support to the filter structure as well.
Exactly. And this filter right here, just to mention it, is a Far Gold Cone series replacement. And as you can see in the video, it's spot welded from the top because this is hung from the top, and that gives it extra support. So this is something that we do extra. Some companies may not do this. Is a way to make sure that this filter stays intact and performs the way that it should in the environment.
All right. So we go through all that. We know a little bit more about the filters. Sorry. Here's what I deal with on a daily basis. Okay. I get a phone call from a customer, or even an AirPower account manager that says, "I'm looking for this filter. I saw this number on the side of it. the product ID number is XYZ123, whatever. I just made that up. And I'm like, well, you know what? I looked that up. That's somebody's part number, and it doesn't mean anything to us. But I always talk to account managers, talk to customers about, with any filter really, I need as much information as possible. We as a company need as much information as possible to be able to correctly identify and replace the filter that you need. In cartridge filters, that is hyper level importance. These are metal filters. They can't bend. You can't cut them back. You can't change anything. Not like a polyester roll that you just cut the shape. So we've got to know a lot of these before they're manufactured, especially if they're custom size. So what are some things, or what is the list of things that are really important for us to know?
It's a good question. So part number is great to have. As a manufacturer, we have the vast majority of our competitors' part numbers in our system, and we know what they are. But with that said, there are a lot of part numbers that we don't have, and there are a lot of part numbers that distributors will sell to a customer with their own part number that there's no logic, there's no way for us to identify what that filter is. So if you have access to the filter, it's great. I mean, this is very important information. Let's pull up this one. What we want is the outer diameter of the filter. The outer diameter.
Can I say something first?
Yes.
The first thing we need outside of the part number is pictures.
For sure.
Pictures to the outside, pictures of the inside of the opening and the inside of the entrance of the filter, and then of the exit. That tells us whether it's open, closed, open, bolt hole,
for sure.
Cage, band, it really quickly identifies.
Pictures tell 1,000 words.
Pictures.
So pictures are the best.
Now we're talking measurements.
Yes, so if you can get the pictures, that's the number one, we need that. But with those measurements, with those pictures, we need the measurements. So we need the OD, the ID, and the length of the filter.
Let's do this again. I know you know what you meant.
Yes.
OD, the entire length of the filter, or the width of the filter. ID would be the width of the interior portion of the filter. Okay? And then the overall length of the filter, don't measure up to the gasket.
Right.
Measure metal to metal.
Correct.
Bottom top. The gasket obviously will smash down, and that gives us a seal.
It's good to know the dimension of the gasket as well.
Yes.
You can get that. Get the OD and the ID of the gasket and the height of the gasket as well. Again, if the filter has a special flange like this one here, again, this is a FAR 10K flange. We would like to know the distance from here to here and the distance from here to here. Okay, and again, pictures help with that.
A lot of the account managers that I work with at Air Power, I'm responsible for the entire filter line for Air Power. So when account managers have new tools now, a lot of them have phones and devices that they can draw on. And so they'll take pictures of the flange is in place. They'll take a picture and they can actually draw and give me the number out here, and then draw and give me the number out here. It makes things really easy for all the different measurements. So if you have a plant, you have filters you need to replace, and you have access to the technology to be able to do that, you're leaps and bounds ahead of the average person that's looking to replace a filter. So
let me point this one out real fast.
Okay.
This is something that you'll see as well. This one is an open at the top, but it has a gasket on the bottom. You see that gasket? So this is a drop-in style filter. So it actually drops in to like a flange that's separate from the filter, and then it is slid into the collector. That's something I want to point out. In this case, sometimes, with a lip like this, sometimes the gasket is on the bottom of the cap, and then sometimes it's on the top of the cap. So that's something that we would also need to know.
Okay. Well, we have covered a ton today. I want to say to you out there, every one of your situations is unique. Some of you may have a standard booth from a manufacturer in powder, a GEMA booth or a Nordson booth or a Wagner booth, and your filters are pretty much, we know what they need to be, or they're stock. Others of you have booths that have been installed for a very long time, and you can't even see a logo on the booth anymore, or it was a custom booth. Some of you may have smog hogs or dust hogs or whatever else in your plant. Air Power can help you with any of those. So all you got to do is call us at the 800 number. I'll give that to you in a minute. But just know that we can help you with anything that you need to replace those cartridge filters, because we partner with people like Will at TrueFlow. So, Will, thank you very much.
Thank you for asking.
I've learned things, and
Thank you for watching.
we will continue to help our customers together.
Absolutely.
So call us at Air Power, 1-800-334-1001, or visit us online at airpower-usa.com. Thanks for watching this edition of Air Power Live.